Hey kids, do you like wrestling? Well, we like wrestling too. We are Shake Them Ropes here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Myself and Chris Novembrino kind of doing a lazy river of wrestling criticism, going through the news and whatever happened in stateside television wrestling. And also, you know what? Sometimes we just like to watch old stuff and talk about that too. Love for you to give us a listen. If you haven't already, we are Shake Them Ropes here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
Hello there, my name's Neil David and I'm the host of Eurograps Express, the podcast exclusively dedicated to the wrestling of Europe. If it's wrestling and it happens in Europe and it's good, we talk about it. Whether it's RevPro, Progress, WXW, Passion Pro, Pro Wrestling Chaos, Pro Wrestling North, we don't care, we talk about them all. If it's good and it's exciting, I want to share it with you. We're on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Check us out on the feed. Check us out on Twitter at EuroGrapsEXP. And join us for chat about European wrestling and a little bit of chat about cheese. Hopefully see you there.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Hungee here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. If you were here for the first time, welcome. And make sure you hit that subscribe button, like, comment, all the things to help us grow. At one point, we were the number 2 wrestling podcast in the whole country of Turkey. And Fred and I love our poultry. So just something to keep in mind there.
Jesus.
As I said, Fred Moreland is my co-host. And Fred, we have some very fun things to talk about today. And the one thing I want to start off with is, how great is Fight Forever?
I like it quite a bit. We've been, I think we've both been playing it a fair bit. I have completed, how much have you done?
Okay, so I did a few singles matches. I looked at the challenges, which I really, really liked. It reminds me a lot of like Call of Duty, and where like, oh, you do X and then you get like points or experience. Well, here you get AEW dollars, so you can buy stuff for like customization. And I thought, oh, you have to buy Cody Rhodes. Okay. Well, like 3 matches with Lance Archer, and I had enough to buy Cody and Aubrey Edwards. So that was quick and easy. But I think it's fun. It's a very arcadey feel. But in being an arcade feel, it doesn't feel like you're being given anything. It doesn't feel unrealistic either. Like even the arcadey elements, you've seen people do some of this stuff. And I saw a clip where Jeff Hardy jumped across the ring onto another ladder.
Oh, that was cool. Yeah, I saw that.
We've seen people do that like multiple times. So even though that's an arcade style, it doesn't feel like unrealistic. And I'm still trying to get the little things down. Like,
yeah,
I'm trying to like tag matches I'm struggling with because I'm trying to Irish whip him into the corner to tag in my partner and just beat up the guy like a Southern style tag team. But it's fun. I'm through about a month on Road to Elite with Eddie Kingston.
I did Eddie too.
Yeah. Oh, he just feels like kind of like that neutral character. Like you can go really far with him, like, and you can get him to a point where he can be like a top guy. But he's not starting as a top guy, so you feel like you actually have to work with it. And it was funny because I got paired up with Hangman Adam Page, and we lost a tag match to Sting and Paul White.
Yeah, I think the exact same thing happened to me too.
Pretty rough. Well, I didn't realize that my guy was being pinned because I was being distracted by my dog, and all of a sudden Sting is pinning Adam Page. I'm like, oh shit. And that was the end of it. No,
yeah.
Really fun.
Yeah, I like the gameplay quite a bit. There's obviously some criticisms to lob at it. First of all, the creation suite is pretty damn weak. I'm hoping that that's something that they will buff, and over the next few months. We'll get to that in a second. But I mean, I actually played around with it a little bit to try to make just a ridiculous character, and there are very few options for your guy or gal. Like they don't even have the option to put like designs on trunks or anything, so it's really bare bones, which is a shame. But it's easy to do at the same time, so that's nice. But like everyone, if you're trying to, make a knockoff of, or like a character based off of, or recreation of insert of, wrestler here, it's going to be very, very bare bones. There's not going to be an option to like give guys designs on their trunks or whatever that they have all the time, or special tattoos or anything. And it's, it's unfortunate. And that's probably one of the things that you should not carry over from No Mercy, which they are obviously that they're very inspired by. So, to turn around and in the year of our Lord 2023 have no way of sharing, CAWs with anyone else is, crazy, really. But, I mean, that's a shortcoming. I hope that they will address that at some point. But I think a bigger issue is that there's no roadmap for the development of the game, like moving forward. And you could argue that they're maybe making sure that the game itself is not a flop, which sure, fine. But I mean, it's pretty commonplace in the video game industry, for better or worse, for a new title to come out and have like established, this is what we're going to be doing over the next 6 months. And AEW has nothing, so you don't know what they're planning on releasing, if anything, if they're going to be releasing any free characters in the future or any kind of updates to the roster, so you can like, change things up and make MJF, less Pinnacle era and more, 2023 solo era, that kind of stuff. And the opaqueness with that is unfortunate. And speaking of opaqueness, I do like the gameplay in general, but there are some aspects of it where it's really hard to tell, like, what exactly, if you're doing anything that has any impact. I think specifically, like when you're getting pinned or in a submission hold, there's no visual representation of if you're about to kick out or anything. So you're mashing buttons and you just don't know what's going on. I think actually... I can see that too, though. I can see the positive of it, but at the same time, like, it's frustrating. One thing that really does bother me with the gameplay is when you're knocked down and you've been taking some damage for a while, and your character will just lie on the mat for like 20 minutes. It feels like,
yeah. So I had that in the Casino Battle Royal, but one thing I liked about that is you kind of take the Casino Battle Royal in a different element where guys are hitting their finishers almost immediately. Yeah. And it's much more of a combative environment versus like a standard singles match. So I kind of liked that. Like my guy, when I was playing in Kingston, he stayed on the ground longer. I thought that was a really nice touch because it's just such an inherently different environment than a standard singles match. Maybe that's a me thing. And I think
it's less... Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I've noticed that a little bit in like regular singles matches where they're down a little bit. One thing I haven't quite grasped is what buttons do I press to get up? Like, I
don't know about that either. That's the frustrating part, because when you take that damage and you're down for a while, you're mashing buttons because I don't know what the hell else to be doing to get up, and there's no indication whatsoever if it's working or if you're just like trying to destroy your joints. And so that lack of feedback, I think, is a real unfortunate thing. I think it's kind of frustrating. And also when you're in like a 3 or 4 man match, and you get put in that state, like, it is incredibly frustrating to have your guy just on the ground, you're mashing buttons with no indication on if that's actually doing anything or not, while, the 2 CPU competitors are trying to finish each other off. This kind of sucks. But the game...
Let me say this.
Yeah.
Let me say this real quick, Fred. I know that there's some frustration about the unknown with the future of this game. Based on kind of how this game has been set up and I don't want to say it's outdated, but some of the stuff is outdated. Like you mentioned MJF with the like kind of the Pinnacle theme, and like the Young Bucks are the tag team champions. Like as far as like the game, some of the stuff hasn't been fully updated yet. The shell itself feels it. It reminds me of Grand Theft Auto 5. Like Grand Theft Auto 6 is finally in production 10 years after Grand Theft Auto 5 came out.
Yeah.
And Grand Theft Auto 5 was among the top sellers in overall dollars. That includes your microtransactions, your buying of like in-game dollars and that kind of thing. It feels like we're set up for the long term, instead of something like WWE where they put out a new game every year. I think this is going to be the game for 4 to 8 years, and they're just going to continuously update it and patch it and offer DLC to continue to grow it and make it better. So by the time the new game comes out in that 4 to 8 years, you may have spent $150 on it, but you never had to buy a new copy of the game. You just got to buy extra stuff to make it even more cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that idea is why I'm really intrigued about the future here, because it's not about getting a new game every year where like, I never bought Madden every year. I bought it like every other because I'm like, you know what? The year-to-year changes are usually not that substantial. Like same with the iPhone. 12 to 13 was like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And when I upgraded to the 14, there was a significant amount of software upgrades where I felt really comfortable about it. And I needed to because of the battery anyways, but that's a whole different story. I like that seems to be the trajectory with this game. And if I'm proven wrong, I'm proven wrong. But that's kind of how I feel the approach was here. They took forever to release it, which we don't know a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, but it feels like they were trying to make sure that the launch of this game was as smooth as possible. And based on early reviews, except that one guy from what was the like Game Line or Hardline who wrote a 26-minute piece about this game being absolute trash, the reviews on this game have been incredibly positive. And most importantly, they're positive from people like us who love professional wrestling, who love video games, and just wanted another pro wrestling video game that was fun. Not necessarily super realistic. There's a lot of realism in this game, but it felt fun. And that's why the No Mercy comparison and why they wanted to kind of build a game similar to No Mercy was such a pivotal aspect to how they built this in. Because that game was fun. Everybody played the crap out of it on the Nintendo 64. Well, if in real time. And today it's still fun because it's got that arcade feel. It's got that, I'm just going to have fun with this, even though it's not necessarily completely realistic. It's not a true simulation.
Mm-hmm.
There aren't a lot of simulation games that are incredibly fun because you like a little bit of the absurdity. That's why I love NFL Blitz.
Yeah.
NFL Blitz has enough realism, and then you pair it with fun like turbo and like diving 10 yards to be able to get a guy and hitting them after the fact, being able to utilize pass interference. Those elements are great. And I think how this game has been structured so far leads me to believe, and especially with how, if you relate this game to Tony Khan's booking, this is a long-term play. And this is going to be a story that's going to continue to be written. And we don't even have anywhere close to the full picture. To me, that's where the intrigue is. And I think they're going to see a lot of that instant feedback from fans. They're going to work on patches to make things better. But it's fun. And to me, that's the most important part of a video game. It should be fun. And they hit the nail on the head. Thank God for that.
I disagree a little bit in the sense that, well, first of all, I know it's terrible. Audio should just be people agreeing with each other. That's the best way to do a podcast. But no, I mean, first of all, so on Metacritic, the game has a 64 right now, which is in the average category. It's got 33 reviews up. 4 of them are classified as negative, 8 is positive. The other 21 are mixed. And I think like that's a pretty fair initial response to this game. I would love for them to continue to update it. That's, obviously what I assume they'll be doing. But, the thing with video game development is you can never really assume that's going to be the case, unfortunately. Video game development companies will promise, like in this games as a service model, which AEW Fight Forever kind of is that they will, they'll promise doing stuff for the next 6 months or a year. And then if sales are weak, the company will move on to another game and they'll be like, well, we got to try to make money. Sorry. Now, obviously, I think this is going to be different for Fight Forever. But at the same time, there's the uncertainty, and we don't even have that roadmap. And that's I think is a really big missing thing. So I do hope they keep patching it and keep trying to improve it. But, there's rumors of like that Stadium Stampede Battle Royale mode, Battle Royale in the video game sense, not the wrestling sense. And if that's the case, that could be really interesting. Are you aware of that, Tyler?
The Stadium Stampede element?
Yeah. Okay, cool.
So I kind of like that that's coming, but it's not here yet. And one of the reasons I like that is obviously you want the full package right away. But
sure, of course.
Sometimes you don't want to overload what the thing is right away, and you want to get the basics down first. Being that this is the first ever venture into a true video game for All Elite Wrestling, and obviously, Kenny Omega has a lot of influence on it because he is one of the biggest gamers around. Mm-hmm. When you kind of combine all these little nuanced elements, Fred, I like that they're going to introduce more things later because I think they got the core right. And they're going to have some minor tweaks here and there. I mean, almost everything gets patched up nowadays because you discover some little bugs and then you fix it. But when you have never made something, getting the basics down first is so incredibly important. And something like Stadium Stampede is one, it's going to be fun. Let's just be honest. We're going to play the crap out of it.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a difficult thing integrating it into an engine because of all the little nuances. You have to create these different elements. Wrestlers are going to ride horses. They're going to be on golf carts. You're going to have to be able to do a finishing move off of that platform onto that crash pad that Kenny Omega did to win the dang thing. I totally get waiting because that's going to be a very intricate thing. And that can also be like a DLC. Oh, $5, you get to play Stadium Stampede. Do I like the fact that I'm going to have to pay $5 for that? In theory, no. But it's just one of those things that you can continuously build and build and build. And I'm fine with it because they got the guts right. They got the heart of it. They cooked the steak perfectly. Now it's about adding the proper side dishes. Fred, you're muted. I am not editing that out.
I accidentally muted myself apparently rather than doing it on purpose and then just forgetting. So, I'm good at this. Yeah, I mean, it's very promising. They have work to do. I hope they do it. And I hope that they're able to continue to improve on this because the core is very good. The actual wrestling gameplay is very good. I like it a lot. The story mode is solid. It's short. Another thing that's really bad is the idea that you have to take every create a wrestler through the career mode, the road to elite mode to get them leveled up. Which is unfortunate, very time consuming and grindy. I have not tried the online play yet. I've never been much of an online guy. So I don't know how much time I'll be spending on that, but
let's talk about the online for a second, Fred, because
yeah, sure.
I have not been able to play it, but having conversations with people in the office Slack, and it's been brought up that like in Madden, if you quit on an online ranked match, you lose. Unless the opponent agrees to a draw. And sometimes they'll agree to a draw because it'll be like a 7-3 game in the second quarter and you just have to go.
Yeah.
And like, that's okay. But there are a lot of people who will quit when they're down 21-0. Yes. Well, I know I'm going to lose anyway, so I might as well just bail. Here, if you're about to lose, you could just quit and nothing happens to you. There's no penalty. And it was basically just a major waste of time.
Yeah.
That, I think, is something that's going to have to be fixed if you want people to continue to play ranked matches, because there's no incentive. If you're just going to lose, why? Yeah, I could just quit. Nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is probably the biggest flaw I've found so far with the game. But it's also relatively minor because that can be fixed.
Yeah, that is a total bummer. I had not got. I obviously have not experienced that myself, but I did see some people talking about that, and that is absolutely insane. I think that should be expected behavior in any online game, that if someone disconnects, that, regardless of if it's their fault or not, that they should, if it's a ranked mode especially, it should be given a loss. But yeah,
it's one of those things. They're going to figure this stuff out, and I'm very excited to see how this continues to grow and evolve, because I think that's going to be the most important thing, Fred. Grow and evolve. Once they figure that out, the sky is the limit for this thing, because it's already really fun. Fun is the most important part of video games.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want. Oh, realism, this, and anything else that you want to put in front of it. But the reason why people play video games, 99% of people, they want to have fun. And this is the epitome of fun. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. It is a fun game, and I just hope they keep improving it and making it better. Absolutely.
And I'll say this: if you have played the game and you like or don't like it, shoot us a message. Let us know what you think of it. I have some interesting notes in the Discord about it. You can go check that out. That is the Voices of Wrestling Discord. And we have our own channel, The Good, the Bad, and the Hungee, in the show section. Go check it out. Let us know what you think. Other news. There's a lot of news, Fred, and we're going to have some really interesting discussions about this. Showbuzz Daily is shutting down this week. And if you don't know what Showbuzz Daily is, they are the ones that release all the numbers for television ratings. That is like total audience and then specific demographics. The main one that we follow is persons 18 to 49, because that is the most important one as far as television commercials. Therefore, it is also the most important one when you're having ratings discourse. But at the same time, you also want to have strong numbers in a lot of other categories too. But the most important one is persons 18 to 49. And that is, and Showbuzz Daily categorizes them as males and females. But it's just encompasses everybody. So them being gone, it's ratings discourse is going to get a lot more dumb, mainly because we just don't have all the information. You're going to have the people like Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics, Wade Keller, the Pro Wrestling Torch. They're still going to get the numbers, but how detailed are we going to get them? Are we going to get them in the same format? Because the one thing about Showbuzz Daily is you got the top 50, and it was broken down, and you could compare them to everybody. Like this past week did just over 800,000 viewers and a 0.24 in the demo. Second place to the NHL draft, which did a 0.25. Nobody watched TV on Wednesday. And that element is not going to get talked about enough in the ratings discourse, because most people don't understand the television ratings. If you're second with a 0.24 and first was a 0.25, nobody's watching television. Like first is almost always in the high 0.3s, if not higher, especially when you have like NBA and NHL games. Those numbers are usually in like the 0.5s, 0.6s, maybe even the 0.7s if you have like Celtics, Lakers, or something like that. But it's going to get a lot more bad faith. It's going to get a lot more gross. And you're going to get a lot more people who don't know what they're talking about having discussions about this. And it's going to get more inherently frustrating.
Yeah, and it does stink. It really does. there's already just like a whole cottage industry based around the stupidest views on the ratings, based on numbers not being the same as they were in the late 90s. Even though we've got Eric Bischoff, who killed his company because of his obsession with ratings. Going around to rant about how AEW finishing second on the night is bad because it was only a 0.2 instead of 3 million viewers, because he thinks about wrestling in the sense of wrestling in 1998 when he was actually involved and heavily had power and had to worry about his company, which he did not do a particularly good job with. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of, this is going to get dumb. There's going to be a lot of really dumb tweets, and it's going to suck. I'm not a fan of it. But
yeah, I'm not a fan of it. Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's going to be annoying. It's going to be frustrating. And, well, we're going to be here to help you parse everything out as best we can, because that is what's most important, is to try to get to the honest truth. And that is why you listen to the Good, the Bad, and the Hungee. Oh, also, and because we're very good looking. We are a very good looking podcast.
Incredibly handsome.
I'm glad you can see that through the audio. Just that
it just carries through.
We're incredibly good looking, and I have some of the best hair in professional wrestling audio. Let's just be real. I am not that cocky. I'm just having a good time. Let's talk about Blood and Guts, Fred. July 19th, Blackpool Combat Club versus the Elite. Let me ask you this question. It was something we were discussing on the Slack the other night. Is Konosuke Takeshita with the Blackpool Combat Club?
I would say no.
I would agree. It was the Go Home Dynamite for Forbidden Door. I can't remember the exact quote. Now I have to go back and watch it. Moxley explicitly says that Takeshita is not a member of the Blackpool Combat Club, but they share a common enemy. That is Kenny Omega, the Elite. And that's why they're together. And you could kind of get a sense of it. They were fine. They're adjacent, but they're not together. And I'm curious if Takeshita ends up being in this match because we don't have Bryan Danielson.
Yeah, it's very it's going to be very interesting to me about who's going to be in this match and how it's going to work out. I mean, obviously Danielson will not be available. If he does, it's going to be like the whole Cowboy Bob Orton gimmick with the cast on his hand.
Say that Cowboy Bryan Danielson. Let's go.
Yeah. I if you saw the X-ray, I have to believe he's getting a pin in that bone that he broke. It's enough where I would not be shocked by that at all. So not only is it's not like just a normal arm break where you get slapped in a cast and let it heal on its own. I think that's going to need surgical intervention, and when you add that in, that increases recovery time, and I think that really raises a question of if he would be able to even wrestle at this point in time. So I'm assuming he's not going to be in it. So that would mean we got Mox, we got Yuta, we got Claudio, and we got Takeshita. I don't know if they add a fifth in there. They could.
We were planning on adding a fifth initially. Mm-hmm. The only thing I can think of is you bring in Shooter for something like this, but I don't even think you can do that because the whole idea would be, oh, you have Eddie Kingston, but this is right after the beginning of the G1. So
yeah,
outside of those guys and Ishii, who have been involved in the feud, who would you bring in? Who would you have as the fifth guy? And the first Blood and Guts, I think it was 4-on-4. It may have been 5-on-5, but the nice part is, like, even if you go back to War Games, it doesn't matter how many are in. As long as it's equal on both sides, it's fine. You can make it work with 4 guys. You can make it work with 5. You can make it work with 6, 7, or 8. It doesn't have to be a specific number.
Yeah, last year it was actually it was 6-on-6, which I had forgot about. In 2021, it was 5-on-5. Yeah, 5-on-5 that year with the Pinnacle and the Inner Circle. Yeah, I mean, they have flexibility. I suppose they could go 4-on-4 if they wanted to. They need to find, if they are going to do it, they'll need to find someone that makes sense in the storyline to add on to the BCC side, because funnily enough, well, I guess 4-on-4 works for both sides at this point in time. Kingston won't be available because he's in the G1 field, and so is Umino. He's debuting this year too. So those guys aren't going to be options, and if they aren't options, I don't know who's really left that makes sense in storyline.
I've got a couple ideas for the Blackpool Combat Club. Pac. And here's why I talk Pac. Pac has consistently throughout this time in the company teamed with people he doesn't like to go after enemies. And obviously the Elite broke his face. They broke his nose, and he was out for an extended period of time during that best of 7. He may want revenge on the Elite. And it's just a superficial revenge because of that. And I don't like you, Blackpool Combat Club, but I'll join you to get my hands on him. You could write that in storyline. On the Elite side, he's obviously doing something else completely different, but the one that makes sense is Adam Cole. So if you wanted to do a 5-on-5, and we're getting in the weeds here, we're fantasy booking and trying to present potential options, it's probably going to be 4-on-4. Adam Cole makes sense. He's been in the Elite. They killed him off in being the Elite, and then they brought him back to life at All Out 2021. So those to me are the options. I don't know if you're willing to go that direction, but it's something to consider. What would be really hilarious is if the Blackpool Combat Club grabs CM Punk. That will never happen. But boy, would it be great.
Yeah. They do have some options, but I think it's probably going to end up 4-on-4. And I think it'll still be really exciting, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting. They did officially announce All Out, which will be the week after All In. And they're going to do an entire week in Chicago. And I'm curious how they're going to structure tickets this year, because last year they structured them as a package. You had to buy a strip where you had to buy the live Rampage, the live Dynamite, and the pay-per-view because they knew people would just buy the pay-per-view and yada, yada, bing, bang. So they had a lot of those strips. I'm curious if they do that again, because it's also not going to be in the same arena. Dynamite and Rampage are going to be filmed at the Now Arena in Hoffman Estates, which is about 40 minutes west of downtown Chicago. And Collision on Saturday and All Out on Sunday are both going to be at the United Center, which is, I believe, downtown Chicago, or maybe it's the south side. I'm not 100% sure, but it's in that general vicinity. I'm curious how those tickets are going to be structured. I'm also curious how Tony Khan is going to build 2 huge shows simultaneously. That's going to be fascinating. Obviously, you have like the Best of the Super Juniors tour, and then you have the Best of Super Juniors final, and then that goes right into Dominion. But because so few heavyweights are actually on that card, you can still have stuff built for Dominion. So you can have those 2 major shows relatively back to back and feel pretty confident about it, where you're building to 2 major shows within a similar time frame. This is a different story, and I'm really curious to see how things happen. Are they going to have like number 1 contenders matches at All In to go to All Out? This is going to be a really interesting test for Tony Khan and how he likes to book professional wrestling. I'm fascinated to see what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be a really busy summer for AEW, and it'll be really exciting to see what they're able to do and what all they build.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. And speaking of summer, one of the last days of summer, AEW is returning to Arthur Ashe Stadium for Grand Slam and Grand Slam Rampage. Awesome. I love Grand Slam. It's going to be 2.5 weeks after All Out. So what kind of big match are they going to get? But Grand Slam the first 2 years has been great. The first one was led off with Kenny Omega versus Bryan Danielson. Like, there's going to be some good stuff, and I'm curious to see how they structure it. And will Rampage be 2 hours again?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Let's talk about Dave Meltzer, everybody's favorite wrestling journalist. He rankings for the Forbidden Door show are out. The lowest rated match he had was 3 stars. I don't know which one that was, but I think
it was the Jericho one, the 6-man.
3 stars is fine. I gave it 3.5, but I totally get it. 4 3/4 for Kazuchika Okada and Bryan Danielson and the 10-man tag. And he gave Ospreay Omega 6 stars. What were your takeaways here? I thought I gave Okada Danielson 4 3/4. I thought it was great. Now, could it have been a lot better? Yeah. Danielson also broke his arm. So, on rewatch, I still kept it at 4 3/4 because I thought that was just so impressive how he worked around his arm literally being snapped and still tapped out Kazuchika Okada in a very creative way where it really doesn't bury Okada at all. It's just Danielson being Danielson. And the 10-man tag, I think we both gave that 5 stars, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally just one person's opinion, but we know with Dave Meltzer, he's watched so much more wrestling than we could have ever imagined that I do take some credence in that opinion, kind of, because I view it from personally, I see his ratings as more of a historical context than anything. I know he doesn't re-rate matches. I'd love to see him re-rate some of the All Japan matches from the early 90s with Misawa and Kobashi and Kawada, because I wonder how many of those would get up to 6 stars. But I have no issue with any of these.
Yeah, I mean, if you're within half a star of someone, you basically agree with them. You're in the same neighborhood. I think what's really interesting here is that with this rating, Ospreay, who's only 30, has now passed Misawa for the most 5+ star ratings from Dave Meltzer in his career. So now Ospreay has the most of all time. Now there's several caveats here. Some people will argue that Dave has inflated his ratings over the past 30 years. I think the response to that would be that Dave likes modern wrestling more than he did most of the stuff from the 90s. I think, there's an argument that he didn't see everything from the 90s and aughts in Japan. And obviously distribution was not what it was, like it is now, where everything is just at your fingertips. So that's something to consider as well. But I mean, ignoring all that, I mean, the real big takeaway, I think, is just that Ospreay's already had a fantastic career if he never steps in the ring again. And I mean, any kind of quibbling about, this person should have more, or Dave's ratings, blah, blah, blah. It's just kind of, you're really nitpicking, and it's just a guy's opinion.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think people take his opinion a little too seriously as far as an entertainment perspective. He has seen so much more wrestling than all of us ever have. I think people need to calm down just a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's Meltzer. He
likes his style. He likes, a style like most people do. I mean, it's just the deal. It's Meltzer likes the style, and he rates accordingly.
Oh yeah, that's honestly a perfect way to say it. Let's continue on and talk about that Osprey Omega match. It's currently 38th all time on Cage Match, with the first match being 7th. Now, Fred, I'm going to give you a minute to pull this up because I'm very curious. I want to know what the first 6 matches are, and I want to play a game. I want to try and guess all 6 matches.
Yeah, let's do that. Game time. I wanted to do the cage match game this weekend. I just forgot to.
Well, this will be our cage match game.
Cage match game variation. Cage match game 2.
All right.
All right. I got it pulled up.
Okay. Omega Okada 4 is got to be one of them.
That was the. Let me look here because I don't have shows or anything. I just have dates.
That would be 6/9/18.
That is correct. That is number 4 all time and 9.79 out of 10.
The tag match 6/9/95.
You will not believe this, but that is not in the top 5 or top 10.
You got to be.
Oh wait, I can't read. That's number 5. Sorry, 9.79.
Jeez. Omega Okada 1.
That was 1/4/17. Yep. That is number 2.
I don't remember the date, but I want to say Misawa Kobashi when Kobashi first bust out the Burning Hammer. I think that would have been like 96.
That is not in the top 10.
Okay.
That is number 11, I think. 120.97 is currently at 9.73 at number 11. So we'll give that an honorary point for the purposes of the game.
Okay. Kobashi Kikuchi versus the K-Man Express from 92.
Correct. That is number 10, 9.74.
I'm going to throw this one out there, and I have no idea if I'm right. Macho Man and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat from WrestleMania 3.
No, that is not in the top 100, shockingly.
Really?
Yeah. Which I think is actually correct. I think like for that time period, that may have been like a 5-star match, but if you go back and watch it now, you're like, I think I went like 4.25 on it or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like really good for the era. Don't get me wrong, but
yeah,
you know, my personal preferences lie elsewhere. That's all it is.
Bret Hart versus Owen Hart. I think that was SummerSlam, or was that Mania?
It was both. I think the Mania one is typically thought of as higher, but that is Mania is 77th on the list, and SummerSlam is not.
So I've got 2, 4, 5, and 6.
Mm-hmm. You're missing
down.
1, 3, 6.
Oh,
8,
I
and
haven't
9.
gotten 6. Okay.
I guess Omega Osprey 1 dropped down to 7th since I made this list this morning.
Yeah. Let's go Omega Okada 2.
That is not on the top 10.
Okay. Shibata Okada. That is that one?
That is number 3 at 9.80.
That's number 3. Okay. I'm trying to think of other modern matches that could be up there.
Let me give you a couple of hints here.
Okay.
First of all, these are all in the 21st century.
That much I figured.
And secondly, they all took place in Japan.
Okay, so they are all in Japan. I think it was 2014, the Invasion Attack, Okada Tanahashi.
No, that is not in the top 10.
Okay.
That looks like 2014, you said.
I think that would have been April. Yeah.
I have a April 2013 between Tana and Okada that is 14th. So I think that's what you're talking about. So close, but no cigar.
Is Okada Osprey at 1?
No, it is not. Okada Osprey is down at 57th. So an awful match.
Wow.
Nobody liked it.
Oh, Will Ospreay, Shingo Takagi, Best of Super Junior Final 2019.
That is 15th.
Gross. Wow, cage match. How dare you?
Haters, all of them.
I'm going to be honest. I'm going to bow out. I don't.
Okay.
What is one?
All right. Number 9 is the 2016 Kenny Omega Tetsuya Naito G1 Climax match.
Okay, that would have been the block final.
And also, 1 year later on the exact same date is a second Kenny Omega Naito G1 match.
That would have been the final.
Yeah. So those two virtually identical in the rankings at 8 and 9. Number 6 is from 2018. That is in the G1 Climax when Hiroshi Tanahashi met Kota Ibushi. And that was the final, phenomenal. I believe. And number 1 is from Noah. You got this matchup right, just didn't mention this one. It was from 2003 when Kobashi and Misawa faced off.
That match was phenomenal. That was a fun game. I'll be honest, I'm a little surprised how well I did, and I'm a little disappointed in Cage Match for a couple ratings, but I'll digress.
Oh, it's a few hundred people putting their numbers in. So the top-rated American match, I always find this interesting, is currently separated by 1/100th of a point. 22nd all-time is Adam Page and Omega against the Young Bucks. From Leap Day 2020 for Revolution. And then right behind it is Ilya Dragunov and Walter from NXT UK.
I put those in the same bucket. That Dragunov Walter match, imagine that match being in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
That match was that good in an empty arena.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then actually the next after that, the next 4 matches are all American. Kenta Kobashi and Samoa Joe. Then the TNA Unbreakable Styles Daniel Samoa Joe match.
I recommend, if you've never listened, go listen to You've Got to Be Kidding Me. Their latest episode that just dropped talks about this match.
Oh, I gotta listen to that and then watch it, because I actually have never watched it.
I'm in like May of 2003 because it's one of those podcasts where, like, if there's current stuff, I'll listen to current stuff first. Mm-hmm. But man, it's great to have on, because not only is Garrett the most knowledgeable person about Impact, and he's probably more knowledgeable than any person on any subject of all time. When talking about Impact. It just feels like two friends just giving each other the business and having a good time. I love that type of style, and it's knowledge based too, which makes it even better.
And then Andrade Almas against Johnny Gargano at TakeOver Philadelphia, and then Bret Hart and Steve Austin at WrestleMania.
Oh, that Bret Hart Steve Austin match. I think that match gets overrated because of the double turn and what came after it. In a vacuum, I don't think that match is that high.
But I disagree fully. But
well, hold on. I get why, but I think it gets overrated because of what came after. And I think that clouds judgment just a little bit. I still give it borderline 5 stars, but I'm not at 5 stars. I'm at 4 3/4. And I think I think hindsight elevates it a little bit more.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a reasonable thing to say.
It's not a 5-star match. But I don't blame anybody who says it's a 5-star match.
I actually think if you go back and read, you have to keep in mind, like, the fact that in 1990 high-level match, the 1990s high-level matches were not happening on a regular basis. This got a fantastic reaction at the time. Meltzer gave it 5 stars when it happened. So it was generally considered like one of the best American matches of all time at that point in time.
Yeah, I get that. Look, I'm not at the same level. I think it's 4 3/4, and well, I guess we're within half stars, so we basically agree. That's fine. All right, let's continue on, because we could get bogged down in the weeds for ever and ever. Let's talk about the assassination of John Muse. And if you don't know what happened, I highly recommend you go watch the first 10 minutes of the press scrum as my wife comes in to drop off the sweet boy Odie. She's getting ready to go to work. So Jericho comes in and yells at Sting, and he throws up a water bottle and hits it with his bat. Now, we all could have told you this was a bad idea, and it ended up bad. It hit John Muse in the head, and apparently he started bleeding. Thankfully, he's okay, but I want to give a lot of props to how they handled it in the room. And I would imagine that later on Chris Jericho went and profusely apologized to John Muse, because that just kind of seems who he is.
Meltzer says that he did. So.
Yeah. Jericho stayed in character. He didn't break. And as kind of shitty as it may feel watching it live, I thought that was important, because what he did was in character and not the person. And then Tony Khan basically called him out for being a piece of crap in real time and said, that's not okay. That's not okay. You need to go. And I thought that evolution of how he handles things in real time, especially when you compare it to Brawl Out, I thought was really important. And it also was important because even though he's not an on-screen authority figure, he's an on-screen authority figure. And I thought that whole situation from an entertainment aspect was handled perfectly. And it sounds like they did right by John Muse. They got him medical attention right away. They took care of him on the back end. That's also great.
Yeah, I'm glad that it all worked out okay. But, it's one of those weird side notes that will be memorable going forward, basically. Jericho did a dumb thing. I don't know how he expected that to work out in a rather small, smallish room with no control of the bottle after he hits it. But,
my guess is he was trying to hit it down so he could do both, but it just didn't happen that way.
It sure didn't. But John Muse is okay, and that's really what's important here.
100%. So as we continue to move forward, Britt Baker was pulled to Dynamite due to illness, and I think this might have been the first time it was directly referenced, but it also may not, because we've seen them kiss on national television, that Britt Baker and Adam Cole are an item. And obviously Adam Cole was pulled from Forbidden Door due to an illness. And then Britt Baker was also pulled due to an illness. So thankfully we can put some of those Adam Cole post-concussion things to bed, because it seems to just be the flu. And that's objectively good for trying to look at Adam Cole's health as on a long-term scale. That's everybody gets sick with the flu unless you're Joe Lanza.
Yeah, and I figured she'll be back next week. Fortunately, it seems like it was a relatively minor illness for Adam, so hopefully that's the same case or same thing for Britt as well.
Yeah. Let's continue to talk about the news. One last thing with Britt Baker. They moved her Owen Hart Memorial Foundation tournament match with Ruby Soho to next week, which I find interesting. Would they have done that with everybody? And I think, especially when you talk about Japan, if you're in a match and you can't make the territory, you can't make the building, you forfeit. And John Moxley had to forfeit the United States title because he couldn't get in the country because of a typhoon. Yep. And that's just one of those things. I'm curious to see if this becomes a precedent or if this is just a one-off because they knew it was the flu. It's not something we're going to have an answer to right away, but I'm very curious to see how it continues to evolve and look long-term. All right, well, let's continue on here. Sting busted his lip and may have knocked out a tooth on Dynamite. Look, nobody wants anybody to lose a tooth or get hurt. But if Sting lost a tooth by doing that awesome dive off the ladder, look, that's cool as hell, man. Yeah. He's 64 years old and he's doing shit he doesn't have to. Why? Because he loves professional wrestling. That rocks. Hopefully it's nothing major and he seems to be just fine, which is awesome. But God, Sting rules, man.
Yeah, he does
rules so much.
That was scary as hell. I'm glad he's okay after that, but it was a very frightening moment when he was like, I'm going to climb this thing and jump off. It's like, no, please don't die. But yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, he seems to be okay. And I'm glad he is okay because he didn't quite go as far as he had hoped to on that spot. I think it worked out in the end. I don't think it looked bad, but Sting rules.
Absolutely. Let's continue here. Dave Meltzer reported in the Wrestling Observer that FTR has gone out of their way to work with everyone in the Elite and aren't a part of ongoing issues. That one fascinates me, Fred, because we know that FTR has had the back of CM Punk, and I'm curious as to how those conversations have been going. FTR has been very outspoken about Punk since Brawl Out. Maybe FTR is the key to bridging the gap and making money. We can talk a lot about those hypotheticals, but it would make sense, wouldn't it, that these guys are the key to potentially making this relationship work long term?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, really, I think that that Punk is willing to try and make this work as far as a business thing. Now, what does that mean for him? I don't know. Maybe he has some ideas on what exactly that would be. But yeah, I mean, I think that he would be willing to do it. I just think it's really, I would assume from what I've read, I think it's mainly the Bucks that just don't want anything to do with CM Punk. And maybe one day that'll all get smoothed out and it'll all be good, but we ain't there yet. And that is, I think it's unfortunate, but I understand. And honestly, it's okay if we don't immediately run back to that. We need to, at some point, do that. But it doesn't have to be like right out of the gate.
Yeah. All right. Outsports 100 most powerful LGBTQ plus people in the sports world. Anthony Bowen's listed at 44.
Yeah.
And look, I don't know if we said it. I don't think we've talked about this yet. That Anthony Bowen segment with Harley Cameron was phenomenal, where he's literally wearing like trunks that are, one, pink, two, they've got the pride flag colors built in and like on the scissors, and he just looks at her and says, "I'm gay." And it got one of the biggest pops of the night. And like he's been out for quite some time, but I think this was the first mention of it on television. And like I thought it was, let's talk about this. I thought it was really cool that they, one, mentioned it, two, everybody like supported him in the building with the positivity, and his teammates like were supporting him in the ring when he said that. I thought the whole thing was well done, and Harley is the only good part of QTV. The only good part of QTV. There is no, unless you count Powerhouse Hobbs, which I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And that's the only part of Rampage I have watched from this past week. And it was a pretty awesome response when the crowd supportingly chanted, "You're gay," or "He's gay," at Bowens. Just a very unique segment. But I mean, Bowens is awesome. There were other people in wrestling on the list. I think Effie was like 96th. And the backstage guy from TNA, not Scott D'Amore, but I can't think of his name right now. But he was on there as well, and there are a couple of MMA fighters as well, Amanda Nunez and Liz Carmouche, I think. But yeah, I'm just a very interesting list.
Yeah. Sadie Gibbs, if you remember the name, she was with AEW a little bit before the pandemic, and she is from England. So, and that's one of the reasons why Jamie Hayter was out for a long time too. It was harder for like the pandemic. Cross country travel was just not a thing. Mm-hmm. And she ended up retiring from professional wrestling she was doing like fitness and Instagram stuff. Now, apparently she's announced to return to wrestling, which I am a fan of. I thought she had real potential, and she was more of a longer term play. I thought by like this time, if she was continuing with wrestling, I thought she could be a real player in the women's division. If she ends up coming back to AEW in some form, I will be very excited.
Yeah, I remember that she was talked about as having a lot of promise when she did join up with AEW at that point in time. It was very early in, the run, of course, but of the company, and it was kind of like it turned out a lot like Strong Hearts, where they popped up every once in a while and were pretty awesome, and then the pandemic came and that just stopped afterwards. It just no longer was a thing. It'd be cool if she is able to become a part of AEW again, and is still at that talent level. I don't think she'll be instantly slotted as high as she might have been if she was able to stick around for the next few months. But I think she could still provide a needed talent boost to the women's division in AEW, which could always use a little more depth and a little more skill. So fingers crossed for her.
Absolutely. I don't know anything about this, Fred, so I'm going to turn this over to you.
Oh, boy.
Just incredible stupidity. Explain.
Yes. Okay, so on the anti-AEW parts of Twitter, there is a thing going around, a clip from the Moxley-Ishii match, where they were trading blows, and they did the spot where they clothesline each other and collapse into each other. And like AEW botches or whoever the hell, whatever shitty gimmick account it was, screenshotted it and was like, look at this bad wrestling, and then Just Incredible, of all people, retweeted it and was like, I'm a better wrestler than these guys. This never happened to me once in 30 years of wrestling. I'm sorry, his exact quote was, I am not saying I am better than these guys, but this has never happened to me in my 30 plus years, not even once, WTF. And it's like clearly like a planned spot. And like maybe that's like not your taste in wrestling, I guess. I don't know. It feels fine, but and then later he said that he would put him against Jerry Lynn against any of these matches that Ishii and Moxley did. And I think Jerry Lynn's doing a lot of work there. But just some very dumb stuff that has, just part of the continuing anti-AEW grifting. So
I'm not giving that any time.
It's very dumb. Extremely dumb shit.
If you didn't like Moxley Ishii, you don't like professional wrestling, man. That was great. And let's get into talking about it, because that was the opener for AEW Dynamite. And I thought it was really cool that they gave homage to their match in the G1, which I believe Moxley won, because I think he started off 5-0 and ended 5-4. And I think this was his first Korakuen main event. Match was great. And beat unmercilessly, beat the living shit out of each other. And they did that here too. They each 1 count kicked out of each other's finisher, the fighting spirit thing and the resiliency. And I thought with these two guys, that story made a lot of sense, where you can't kill me, I'm going to kill you aspect. And 1 count kickouts, I'm normally not the biggest fan of, but I think it really worked here, just like it worked with the Omega and Ospreay match. And these guys just beat each other up. I gave this 4.5. This was great.
Yeah, this was a blast of a match. I went 4.5 on it as well. It was just intense, hard hitting. They tore into each other. The early chop exchange just bloodied the hell out of each guy's chest. I could do without the way they did those headbutts. Unprotected headbutts really do need to stop being a thing. But they did them, and I can't say it wasn't cool in the moment. But I also have my degree that makes me say, please don't hit your head against someone else's on purpose at any kind of speed. But yeah, I love this match. It was a lot of fun. It was a great TV match, and just a fantastic way to open the show.
Yeah. When we have to talk about this element, Fred, halfway through the match, Eddie Kingston's music hits. And the reason why Eddie's music hit is because you had Claudio and Yuta ringside, and it looked like they were about to attack Ishii, and Kingston was not letting that happen. Throughout the rest of the match, all you got was Kingston and Claudio staring each other down. And later on, you had Renee Paquette like yelling at Kingston. And I thought this was really cool because it showed an element of, hey, Renee is Moxley's husband, or Moxley's wife. I mean, we all know that. None of us are dumb. She starts yelling at Kingston for this BS, and Mox had a perfect line. Like, get over this old CHIKARA BS.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And Kingston won't do it. And it ended up with a blow up. And it feels like we're getting Moxley Kingston singles at some point. Maybe this is an all in or all out match. I also wouldn't be shocked if they do some form of tag at one of those. And then that could be a Grand Slam main event because Eddie's from Yonkers. I thought this was really well done. And yeah, I love this stuff. This is great.
Yeah, the Eddie stuff was great. Him and Claudio just staring at each other throughout the match was a great touch. This was just great wrestling, man. Absolutely nothing negative to say about it whatsoever. Just about as good as it could have been considering time and setting and everything. So,
yeah. What a great way to start off Dynamite. And that we go immediately to a backstage interview with Adam Cole. Adam Cole pulls up in an SUV, gets out, and then you see MJF pulling up like in another SUV. And MJF, what a brilliant line here. Congrats on getting sick for Forbidden Door. Like, just great. Because MJF is like, I wish I would have thought of that. And he goes on to talk about, I think me and you got off on the wrong page here. Obviously, you were good enough to beat me for the Triple B, but nobody is on the level with the devil. Just imagine what we could be capable of as a team. So how about you and me bond a little bit this weekend? Hop in my car. So he said, sure, I'm going to go say hello to a few people first. This will be important because we'll get another segment here in a little bit.
Yeah, but this was a nice little segment, and I think it works well with what came after. And that segment also was good. And I don't know how I feel about the storyline though. The rivals who become friends thing. There's obviously some intrigue as to what Adam Cole's going to do, but it feels pretty obvious that he's just going to try to sucker MJF in here. And there's different directions they could take it with. It just, I don't know. Well, how do you feel about MJF's title reign at this point?
I wish there was more meat on the bone, but one thing that's really helped me feel more positive about this title reign is the fact that we have the BCC Elite stuff, because while his title reign can take a little bit of a backseat at times because of his inactivity, and they're starting to use more activity. He's wrestling on Collision this week. He has made an appearance on Rampage for the first time, and they're starting to use him more and more. And I think the idea was that this summer he's going to do a lot more stuff. And I wish there was more, but I also get it, and it fits his character perfectly that there's not. So I'm a little torn. I think if I had to give his title reign a number, it'd probably like 7.5, because the matches have been great. But you just feel an element of disappointment that they haven't done more with him.
Yeah, the Danielson thing was awesome. The Four Pillars thing the build was kind of mediocre. Match was good though, quite good. And now, he's had a very good match. I thought a very good TV match with Adam Cole. But I don't know how I feel about the build to it. And then there was a Tanahashi thing, which, he did a good performance in to get a pretty good match out of, a badly broken down Tanahashi at this point, rapidly aging. But still, I don't know. I think for a guy whose whole thing is storyline, I don't know how I feel about this storyline, and I wasn't really a fan of the previous one. So I don't, very, very interesting.
Yeah. This whole thing is interesting. And then right after the Renee Paquette interview with Adam Cole, we got a commercial. And then we had the stuff with Paquette confronting Moxley and Kingston. And here's the exact verbiage. Kingston's like, I got your back, Mox, but you're with Claudio. Moxley, who cares about some CHIKARA BS between the two of you from years ago? And Eddie obviously cares. Renee yells, enough, Eddie. You better fix this. I'm done. I'm a little curious. What is Renee yelling at Eddie to fix? The relationship with Moxley and make sure that they're good? Because obviously they've been friends for a long time, and we know that Eddie saved Jon Moxley from the exploding barbed wire death match. Like, what exactly are they trying to save? That part was really intriguing to me.
I assumed their relationship, but I don't know. One thing I did really enjoy in this segment, by the way, was when Renee yelled at Jon Moxley, and what I can only assume is the truest reflection of real life in wrestling ever. John, I told you no more headbutts. I can't imagine what it'd be like watching your spouse do this stuff like every week that Jon Moxley does, including those headbutts he did. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of intrigue, I think, with the Kingston storyline and what exactly they're going to do moving forward and how this is going to play out. I have to assume that he and Mox are going to have a match at some point directly, despite probably not wanting to in kayfabe. But yeah, I mean, I think this to me is like a better version of what they're kind of trying to do with MJF on a regular basis of this kind of storytelling. And I don't know, I prefer this to what they are normally presenting, I guess, with MJF.
Yeah, I'm very curious to where this leads. This is going to be interesting, and it leads into a trios match. What a ragtag group this is. This feels like a Fire Pro Wrestling sim. AEW International Champion Orange Cassidy teams with Keith Lee and El Hijo del Vikingo versus the JAS's Daniel Garcia and 2.0 Matt Menard and Cool Hand Ange. This was good. It got a little sloppy at the end. Keith Lee was supposed to completely catch Vikingo and like on his shoulders and then do the swinging spot where he uses Vikingo's body as a weapon against the JAS. But Vikingo knocks him down and Lee just picks him up with a powerbomb anyways and then does it.
Yeah. It worked out okay. I thought that didn't really bother me.
This was fun. Daniel Garcia is going to become a star, and we've known this for a long time. This new dance that he's got, tremendous. It's tremendous. It's snarmy. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Shawn Michaels. Do you kind of get where I'm going here?
Yeah. I think with like the guy that can work very well, but also is a very cocky kind of heel.
Yeah, it's it's very good and it fits him perfectly. And I thought it was really cool. What was it? The tag match where his pants split open at the crotch. Yeah. I thought was a perfect touch for that whole thing too, which was great. But I gave this match 4 stars. It was fun. It was a great way to get guys like Keith Lee and Vikingo on the show. And if you didn't see the how they ended up forming a team, that Shivani said, "Hey, best friends aren't available. Who are you going to team with tonight?" And then he forms Keith Lee says he'll do it. And then he ends up looking across and then just gives the lazy thumbs up to Vikingo, and Vikingo does one back. And that's how they end up forming the team. Perfect Orange Cassidy segment.
Yeah, he is really great. Orange Cassidy is. Again, you could still argue he's the AEW MVP this year. Guy is just having a fantastic run with this championship.
Yeah. Right after this, we had Hangman Page and the Young Bucks backstage, and Page said they had a Trios Open challenge tonight. Dark Order interrupts, and John Silver says they want to accept the challenge. Evil Uno, you abandoned us for them, and now you're sorry? Alex Reynolds, we were your friends when you were at your lowest moments. Tonight, we're your opponents. And this will happen in a couple of segments. What did you think of this?
Just the angle or the whole thing? Do you just want to go ahead and talk about the match too?
Let's talk about the whole thing, because
sure.
The match itself was very good because, I mean, it's the Elite. Dark Order, like, they're not a push act, but it's
all right now.
Yeah, it's very good. They're very good wrestlers. Like, Johnny Hungee gets a lot of it gets a lot of crap because, I mean, he's just a little muscle hamster, but these dudes can work. And
yeah, I mean, and they're flawed. They are flawed wrestlers. I think Silver, he had a couple opportunities like a year or two ago to like get himself over, and just did like very cringe humor that I don't think worked in a wrestling setting. Alex Reynolds comes across
because he got over doing cringe humor on BTE.
Yeah, but that's like a cult thing, and then I don't know, it didn't work the way they did it. And then with Alex Reynolds, I think he just comes across very generic in general. I mean, I'm not saying he's not a bad talker or anything, but like he just doesn't have like superstar charisma or anything. And Evil Uno is a good talker and not a bad wrestler, but you know, he's got physical limitations in terms of age and weight. And you know, he's best served at being in a tag team at this point in time. You know, but like I thought this match was quite good. I will say that I think that they could have had like a real like the Dynamite dozen. I think they could have had a match that was up that high on that ranking on my end, if this was not such a storytelling match where the story is Adam Page feels bad, man. I thought they did that. The whole Adam Page looks very sad about having to wrestle someone from the Dark Order kind of gimmick. Too much. I thought they really kind of went over the top with him, like every couple minutes, just like having a mopey look on his face. But the work in this was really good. The closing, like 5 minutes or whatever, was fantastic stuff. Once everyone went wild, and you know, I think this storyline of Dark Order having enough with Adam Page, I'm intrigued as to where exactly it's going to go, and you know, I like this overall. I think,
yeah, I liked it, but I'll be honest, I thought it was just a little too story heavy.
Mm-hmm.
I get the premise where they teamed with Dark Order for so long, they understand all his moves, and they just kept countering it.
Which was cool.
I did think it was cool. I thought it was just a little too overblown. I kind of, and you know what, this is probably just a me thing. I thought it made Page look a little weak. That he couldn't adjust himself to kind of counter what these guys were like, that they knew that he didn't have a curveball for him. And I really thought that element could have played a nice role in this match, but they didn't do it. And I think that took me out of it just a little bit. But like I said, that's probably just a me thing. And I still gave this match, I think it was either 4 or 4 1/4. So I really liked it. It was a very good
4 on this as well.
But I wish the story of that was a little downplayed, or Page had a counter where he had something that they had never seen. Knowing Page should have known that they knew everything he was going to do. He was with them for so long. Like, that should have clicked in his head. And I thought it made Page look a little weaker, or not quite as smart, that Dark Order was just like 1 or 2 steps ahead of him at all times. And I thought they should have had a curveball for the Dark Order in this sense. But that's probably just me nitpicking, and I can live with that.
And that could come down the road.
But I thought they could have done a little more to make Page look better in this sense, and they didn't.
I think that's fair. I don't think that the real purpose of this match was for him to look good, though, as much as you know, him struggling with the whole, you know, obviously the internal issues of having to fight his friends. But also, I think at this point in time, he's not a very good friend in kayfabe. I think the Dark Order's right. He kind of was crappy towards them, and that's just the deal. That's the storyline, I guess.
Yeah. Right before this, and we kind of jumped ahead a little bit because we wanted to continue talking about the Page and Young Bucks interaction and then go on to the match. In between the segment and the match, we had Renee Paquette backstage with Sam McIntyre and Chris Jericho. Jericho, for the first time ever, just a few days ago at Forbidden Door, Chris Jericho and Sting were in the ring together. But Jericho and Sting should be on TBS. Sting, you wanted one more time with Chris Jericho. Sting, tonight you get your nightmare. I'm going to go deep inside myself. Let's bring out the Painmaker, Sting. You know about being dark when your back is against the wall. You want to get dirty, Sting? Let's get dirty. Here's your chance, Sting. You get all the time you want with the Painmaker. I thought this was great. I loved that he also mentioned in the context of this promo that Tony Schiavone be calling the match, and he thought that was just perfect because Schiavone was the voice of Nitro. Mm-hmm. Obviously, early on in Nitro, you had like the separation of hours where you had Bischoff doing the second hour, Schiavone doing the first, but Schiavone is the voice synonymous with Monday Nitro. And I thought this was great. It set up the match. It got you just a little bit more excited. And for those who didn't know the history, I thought it laid things out in a really nice manner where it doesn't make you feel dumb, but it gives you just a quick premise if you weren't aware of the past with both Sting and Chris Jericho in WCW.
Yeah. And I thought this was a decent little promo. I'm not going to say like it was the best ever or anything, but yeah, it was good. It was solid.
Yeah, and I think solid is the perfect way to go. Roderick Strong meets Adam Cole backstage, and this is where we talked about that first segment with Cole and MJF. Strong told Cole not to trust MJF. Cole agreed, and MJF comes up and it's like party time, and Cole's like, I got this, pretty much, and told Rod he love you and good luck on his match, which I believe is Saturday on Collision. They did tape Collision this week, so something to be mindful of. It will not be live. A couple of these collisions that they're doing in Canada will not be live. They will be taped. I don't know how much of that's going to be a trend or how much of it just because they're in Canada, yada, yada, bing, bang. But something to be aware of.
Yeah, and I think the really important part of this segment is that, Roddy and Cole openly talking about how, Cole is trying to trick MJF and how and Strong brings up to him, don't you think he'll watch this back, and see that you just said this. And then, of course, MJF comes in and acts like a goofball. Then immediately they're like, yeah, he's not going to watch this back, which I thought was kind of funny. And, is setting up a storyline beat where he obviously does eventually watch it back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this continues to develop because they're going to blow up and then we're going to get a title match between them. Oh, yeah. And if Adam Cole is healthy, I kind of want him to win. I think he could be a really good transitional champion where you give him the belt for like a pay-per-view cycle and then he loses it and he gets like one title defense and then you kind of go on to the next guy. Maybe it's Moxley. I don't know. Like I would love for Kingston to win it, but at the end of the day, I think Kingston's eventual destiny is beating Claudio for the ROH title.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And speaking of interesting, Fred, Hollywood Jack Perry. Oh my gosh. This was
we got a lot to talk about with this segment.
So let's start here. Let's start with the look. The look is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. He's got the douchebag suede jacket. He's got the Ray-Ban aviators. His hair's in a ponytail. He looks like he would have been on 90210 like his dad was. Like, I thought the look was great. You can obviously tell that it's got a Christian influence.
Yeah, he's dressed exactly like Christian did in some of his heel promos recently. So, like, it's an obvious nod, which is a nice touch. I want to talk about this promo he cut. I don't think this promo was good. I thought it was, if I was rating it like a match, it'd be like a 2-star promo, which for me is like bog standard average. There's nothing there was nothing great about it, but it also, I've seen bad promos, and this is not one of those promos. It's just like, this was a standard heel promo. Was it very WWE-ish? Like, let's talk to the camera and talk about how bad a person I am and how much I hate the fans. Yeah. But I mean, like, it was fine. There's a lot of reaction to it as as just awful. And I mean, I've seen bad promos. I've seen a lot of bad promos in my time, and this was not that bad. It's very odd to see that discussion, because I mean, especially with the reaction to this episode of Dynamite, take Cage Match for example. Right now on there, it's like a 7.33. And I guess I'm just higher on everything on this show than most people by like a half star or so. But, I thought this had like 3 notebook matches and a 4th that flirted with it. I don't know. To me, that's like a really strong TV show. And I'm kind of surprised by the not bad reviews it's getting, but the more like middling reviews it's getting. And I don't know. That's just very interesting to me. And I think the Perry thing, Joe Lanza has this theory that because Dynamite is typically a very good show, what happens is every week there's one segment where people find the weakest segment and it's over discussed to death. And I feel like that's kind of what's happening with the Shaq Perry promo. It wasn't a highlight of the show or anything, but it was fine, and it set up a feud, and it's just fine, and it's okay to just say that the thing was okay. It doesn't have to bounce between like the greatest thing ever and the worst thing ever. This was just 100% fine.
I think he's going to get more comfortable, and these are going to get better and better and better.
Yeah. And the obvious comp here is Britt Baker, when she turned heel initially.
Yeah.
Will Jack Perry get that comp? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Heel.
Yeah, I mean, it's still unclear if he will be able to accomplish that, if he'll get comfortable with that. But I mean, if he does, then obviously it'll be a grand slam. It'll be a great success for him. If it doesn't, then he's not going to be a main eventer. This is make and break time for him. I think it's very important, and there's no guarantees here. And if his performances are going to stay at the level of Wednesday night, then he will not be a main eventer. He just won't have the ability to talk at the level necessary to be that. But I think that it's going to take time for him, and these next 3 months are going to be him getting the time to show that and to develop that.
Yeah, I think the fact that he wasn't a disaster is objectively good for him, because there is growth here, and when you've never really been a heel, that can be a tough transition. And I'm very intrigued to see how this goes. I think there is a ton of room for growth and potential here, as I just mentioned. He looks like a douchebag with this new look, and I think that is incredibly important for establishing what the character is. How can he grow from that? I think he needs to spend more time with Christian. Go live at Christian's house. Talk with Christian 8 hours a day about being a heel douchebag. Christian's so good at it. If you can absorb at least 25% of it, Jack Perry could be a main eventer. We all know Tony Khan thinks he's going to be, and he's being pushed really hard as far as a guy who's really not getting a push at all. Like, he's being relatively protected. If you can make this work, you have another star in your hands, and I'm very fascinated to see how it develops.
Yeah, and I mean, there's just a lot up in the air for Jack, and obviously it'll be great if he can reach it, but he has work to do. Now, I think that the Hook, coming out to chase him down, I think that was a pretty good part of the segment. hook runs very fast, as you should probably expect for a former lacrosse star. And Jack Perry got away, but just barely. So, just a basic angle, but I thought that played nicely off of the promo.
Yeah, I think so too. Next up, we had Ruby Soho, who was supposed to be wrestling Britt Baker here. She wrestles a local town, Alexia Nicole, and beats her pretty quick. But I think what was more interesting, she applied the lockjaw for the win and then cut a promo berating Britt Baker. And she mentioned that, like, at Arthur Ashe, you said I didn't know who I was, but honestly, I love who I am now. But do you? You're a shell of your former self. You're one of the hardest working people in the building. But do you have fans? Last year, you barely beat me in the finals on your best day. And since then, we have collectively taken away everything that meant anything to you. Next week, I'm going to take away your chance to be the 2-time Owen Hart Cup winner away from you. This was good. She also mentioned something about how, like, the face turn and how that really didn't work. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but I thought it wasn't a great promo, but it accomplished what it needed to. And I think that's what's important.
Yeah, it was fine. This was another one that was like the Jack Perry one. Like, this was absolutely fine. It was not an all-timer by any stretch, but it also wasn't a disaster. Like, this was another, like, average-ish promo that I saw some people reacting to like it was genuinely bad. This did its job. I think the Outcast in general work. I think if I put the two promos against each other, I'd say the Ruby one was a bit better than the Perry one. So this just did its job. It advanced the storyline and I think covered up for what was probably a late change of plans that they hadn't, that was not what they had planned for, the illness, causing them to change the booking on this. It was fine.
Yeah, it was. Main event time. Tornado Tag Team Grudge match. The Painmaker, Chris Jericho, and the Spanish God, Sammy Guevara, lose to Darby Allin and the Icon Sting, where Sting gets Chris Jericho to tap out with the Scorpion Deathlock. And obviously, you have to use a sharpshooter in Canada. And I thought this was great. Odie, you're okay.
Hungee dog, man.
Yeah, Odie does not like being cooped up in my office. So he's only been in here for about 40 minutes. He's okay. I thought this was good. And obviously the highlight of the match was Darby going up to the top of the ladder to hit Sting with a coffin drop. Sting says no and does a splash, and that's where we think that he may have lost a tooth. This was fun.
Yeah, he definitely busted his mouth open on that. So
yeah, only like 3.5 stars, but it was a fun 3.5 stars, and we're spoiled as hell by Sting. He shouldn't be doing stuff, but he is.
Yeah, I went 4.25 on this. I actually thought this was really good. Just constant action. Darby, in particular, but Guevara did a lot of the heavy lifting here, and I thought it all worked well. I thought the closing sequence between Sting and Jericho was a lot better because I thought Sting may have been dead after that bump. Not literally, but like he may have been injured and unable to continue, and he just got up and had a decent 3-minute closing stretch with Jericho, and I thought it was great.
My favorite spot in the match was when they Irish whipped Darby Allin into the stairs. He hits it knee first and flips over the guardrail. I thought it was a phenomenal spot. The fact that Darby was able to make that work was tremendous. I loved it. I thought maybe I need to give it a rewatch and I'd go higher, but it was a lot of action, but I think the commercial break really hindered it for me. Odie, you're okay, buddy. You're okay. We're going to hang out downstairs soon. This was good.
What a dog. Yeah, this was a nice capper to what I thought was a very good episode of Dynamite.
Yeah, let's go over the schedule here moving forward. On Friday night's Rampage, which is tonight since we're recording Friday morning, Johnny TV, also known as Johnny Impact, Johnny AAA, all those other things. And QT Marshall versus Matt Hardy and Brother Zay. Sean Spears versus The Blade. Hikaru Shida versus Taya Valkyrie. And the ROH World Championship's being defended as Claudio Castagnoli defends it against Commander. That'll be a fun match.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one.
Especially with what we saw him and Ray Phoenix do. Him and Commander will have some fun.
Yeah.
July 1st, Collision. MJF and Miro will be in action. 3 matches in the Owen Hart Memorial Cup Tournament. Dustin Rhodes versus Powerhouse Hobbs. Juice Robinson versus Ricky Starks. And Roderick Strong versus Samoa Joe. Along with, this is an interesting one, Chris Statlander versus Lady Frost for the TBS Championship. I think Lady Frost is interesting.
Yeah, she's got something.
I think she's got talent. And I'm excited to kind of see how she does in the stage. Then July 5th, Dynamite. Blind Eliminator Tournament. Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland versus Darby Allin and Orange Cassidy. Britt Baker versus Ruby Soho in the Owen Hart Memorial Cup Tournament, which was the match that was supposed to happen this week on Dynamite. And then this just got announced on Thursday. Kenny Omega versus Wheeler Yuta. Let's go.
That should be awesome. I think Yuta is definitely going to be a guy, like a top of the card guy for a while now. Or for a while moving forward, once it's time to pull the trigger on really elevating him. And I think this will be a big part of that because he did get the pinfall on Omega in a 6-man tag a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, this is really cool stuff, I think.
Yes. Was it a 6-man tag? No, it wasn't. Wait. Double or Nothing was a 6-man tag, wasn't it? Or was it 8-man? Because Double or Nothing is where Yuta got the pin.
Yeah, it was Double or Nothing, I think.
Okay, but yeah, that was great stuff. That's our show, Fred. Another really good week of AEW, and yeah. I'm excited to see how everything continues to grow because this summer is honestly, and maybe it's a little bit hyperbolic. I think this is the biggest 3-4 month period in the company's history. Yeah,
it's a really interesting time, and I mean, so far they're doing very well on the big stage, and I think their TV numbers, as far as attendance, are coming around. The ratings are fine, pretty good, relatively speaking, and yeah, I mean, it's a promising time for AEW.
Yeah, it absolutely is. In the meantime, you can find the show on Twitter at GoodBadHungee. You can email us at hungeepod@gmail.com. You can also find us in the Voices of Wrestling Discord. You can find me on Twitter at The Real Forno. All my Vikings work is at USA Today's The Vikings Wire, and Vikings First and Skull on YouTube. You can find Fred at Flagrant Wrestling because Ted Turner rules. And you can also subscribe to his currently paused Patreon, which is in the show description. When he comes back with stuff, it is going to be a much more analytical based look at professional wrestling. Highly recommend you check that out. Thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe, all the things, and have a wonderful 4th of July.
Yeah. Happy holidays, everyone. Take care. Have a good one.
Hi, my name is Tyler Fornes, and I am the co-host of The Good, the Bad, and the Hungee here on the Voice of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Every week, my co-host Fred Moreland and I discuss all the happenings of All Elite Wrestling and everything going on in the universe of Tony Khan. We talk about Dynamite, we talk about Rampage, and we will talk about Collision when the time comes as well, along with all the appearances outside of AEW from all the best talents in All Elite Wrestling. This is one of the more cohesive wrestling companies in the entire world, and we discuss every intricacy about it, including the unique booking of Tony Khan that is both a huge positive and a major detriment. Check us out every single Thursday here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
Hi, I'm Case Lowe, co-host of the Open the Voice Gate podcast. The one question I'm constantly asked when it comes to Dragon Gate is how do I get into the promotion? Well, stop asking and start listening to the Open the Voice Gate podcast, released every Wednesday on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. For exclusive news and show reviews, look no further than the leader in Dragon Gate coverage, Open the Voice Gate.